"Emily, stop! You can't go in there, the car's about to explode." But Emily Carter was already running toward the mangled Mercedes, its front end wrapped around the concrete barrier like twisted metal sculpture. The $200,000 car was now a death trap, flames shooting from the hood, the smell of gasoline thick in the air. Inside, a man in an expensive suit was unconscious, blood streaming down his face, completely unaware that he had less than 30 seconds to live. The other drivers stood frozen, filming with their phones, too terrified to approach. But Emily didn't hesitate. She grabbed a tire iron from a nearby truck and smashed the passenger window, glass exploding everywhere. The heat was unbearable. Her skin felt like it was burning as she reached inside. "Come on," she screamed, grabbing the man's shoulders. He was heavy, dead weight, but adrenaline gave her superhuman strength. She could hear the engine making a high-pitched whine, the sound a car makes right before it becomes a fireball. With one final, desperate pull, she dragged him clear just as the Mercedes erupted in a massive explosion. The force knocked them both to the ground, debris raining down around them. Emily threw her body over the stranger, protecting him from flying metal and burning plastic. When the smoke cleared, she finally looked at the man she'd just saved. His face was covered in blood, but something about those features, that jawline, those cheekbones, seemed hauntingly familiar. She'd seen this face before, but where the answer would shock her to her core. This stranger, whose life now beat beneath her bloodied hands, was the same person who had destroyed her entire career just 12 hours earlier. He was Nathan Hartwell, the CEO who had fired her that very morning without a second thought. But Emily didn't know that yet. All she knew was that she'd just cheated death to save a stranger, and the universe was about to reveal a twist that would change both their lives forever. If this incredible opening grabbed your attention, hit that like button right now and subscribe to our channel, because what happens next will absolutely blow your mind. This is a true story about fate, forgiveness, and the shocking moment when Emily discovers exactly who she just saved. You won't believe what happens when their worlds collide. The morning had started like any other at Hartwell Industries, Atlanta's premier tech company. Emily Carter, 28 years old and full of ambition, arrived early as always. Her desk in the marketing department was her sanctuary. Photos of her late parents, a small succulent plant, and the Employee of the Month certificate she'd earned just 3 months ago. But something felt different that morning. Whispers echoed through the corridors, and groups huddled in corners, their conversations dying whenever she approached. The email came at 9:17 a.m. All staff meeting, main conference room, mandatory attendance. Nathan Hartwell, the company's CEO, stood at the podium like a judge about to deliver a death sentence. At 35, he was known for his cold efficiency and brutal business decisions. His steel-gray eyes swept over the assembled employees without a hint of emotion. Due to market conditions and necessary restructuring, his voice cut through the silence. Hartwell Industries will be eliminating 20% of our workforce effective immediately. The room erupted in gasps and murmurs. Emily's heart pounded as HR representatives entered with manila envelopes, the corporate executioner's tools. When one stopped at her desk, the world tilted sideways. "But I've exceeded every target," Emily protested, her voice barely a whisper. "I just landed the Morrison account." The HR representative's sympathetic smile was rehearsed. "I'm sorry, Ms. Carter. The decision is final. You have 1 hour to clear your desk." As Emily packed her belongings into a cardboard box, she caught sight of Nathan Hartwell watching from his corner office. Their eyes met for a brief moment, hers filled with tears and confusion, his as cold and distant as winter stars. Then he turned away, already focused on his next meeting. The security guard escorted her out like a criminal. In the parking garage, Emily sat in her car for 20 minutes, too shocked to even start the engine. 5 years of dedication, of skipped vacations and weekend work, reduced to a cardboard box and a severance check that wouldn't cover 2 months' rent. Her phone buzzed with messages from colleagues, some offering sympathy, others asking what happened. But Emily couldn't respond. All she could think about was her student loans, her mortgage, and the medical bills from her mother's final illness that she was still paying off. As she finally drove away from Hartwell Industries, the storm clouds gathering overhead seemed to mirror her mood. She had no idea that in 12 hours, she would hold the life of the man who'd just shattered hers in her blood-stained hands. The transition from corporate worker to unemployed statistic happened in the span of a morning. But sometimes, the universe has a way of weaving our worst moments into something unexpected. Though Emily couldn't see it yet, as she drove home through increasingly heavy rain, her vision blurred by tears that wouldn't stop falling. The hospital waiting room felt like purgatory. Harsh fluorescent lights, the antiseptic smell of disinfectant, and the quiet desperation of people waiting for news about loved ones. Emily sat alone, her clothes still damp, bandages wrapped around her cut hands. The police had taken her statement, praising her quick thinking and bravery. "The man you saved," a doctor approached her 3 hours later. "He's asking to see you. He's stable now, thanks to you." Emily followed the doctor down sterile corridors, her sneakers squeaking against polished floors. She'd given a fake name to the paramedics, Sarah Johnson, some instinct telling her to protect her identity. The irony wasn't lost on her. She was about to meet the stranger whose life she'd saved, having no idea who he really was. The private room was more like a luxury hotel suite than a hospital room. The man lay propped up in bed, his head bandaged, but his eyes alert and focused. Those eyes, something about them nagged at her memory, but the context was all wrong. "You saved my life," he said, his voice hoarse but warm. "I'm Nathan. Nathan Hartwell." The name hit her like a physical blow. Emily's legs nearly gave out as recognition flooded through her. The cold CEO who'd signed her termination papers was now looking at her with genuine gratitude, having no idea who she really was. I'm Sarah," she managed, the lie tasting bitter on her tongue. Nathan studied her face, a slight frown creasing his forehead. "Do I know you? You seem familiar somehow." Emily's heart raced. "I don't think so. I saw the accident and acted on instinct." Over the next hour, Nathan insisted on learning more about his savior. Emily spun a careful web of half-truths. She was between jobs, had some medical training, lived alone. Each lie felt like swallowing glass, but what choice did she have? "I want to repay you," Nathan said suddenly. "I'm going to need assistance during my recovery. Someone to help with correspondence, scheduling, basic tasks. Would you consider working for me temporarily? The pay would be substantial." The irony was so thick Emily almost laughed. The man who'd fired her that morning was now offering her a job, not recognizing the woman whose life he'd upended. She thought of her empty bank account, the bills piling up, the rent due in 2 weeks. "I'll think about it," she heard herself say. As she left the hospital, Emily's mind churned with conflict. She should walk away, forget this ever happened. But something pulled her back. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe it was the need for income, or maybe it was the universe's twisted sense of humor. That night she called the hospital. "Tell Mr. Hartwell I accept his offer." The next morning, Emily, now Sarah, reported to Nathan's Buckhead mansion, a sprawling estate that screamed old money and new success. The housekeeper led her to a home office where Nathan sat in a wheelchair, his laptop open on the desk. "Thank you for coming," he said, gesturing to a chair. "I know this is unusual, but I believe in fate. You were meant to be there last night." If only he knew, Emily thought, settling into the expensive leather chair. She'd sat in a similar chair yesterday morning in his corporate office as he'd signed away her career without a second thought. The work was simple, answering emails, organizing his schedule, making calls. But every moment was torture. Nathan was different here in his home, wearing casual clothes instead of designer suits. He was almost human. He asked about her life, her interests, even made jokes. It was disorienting, seeing warmth. Theories that had been so cold just 24 hours ago. On the third day, as Emily was organizing files, a sharp voice cut through the peaceful atmosphere. "And who exactly is this?" Eleanor Hartwell stood in the doorway like an avenging angel in Chanel. Nathan's mother was legendary in Atlanta society. Old money, old values, and an iron will that had shaped her son into the ruthless businessman he'd become. Her eyes, the same steel gray as Nathan's, fixed on Emily with laser focus. "Mother, this is Sarah. She saved my life," Nathan explained. "She's helping me during recovery." Eleanor's perfectly shaped eyebrow arched. "How convenient. A young woman just happens to save my son and then accepts a position in his home." The accusation hung in the air like poison. Emily felt her cheeks burn but kept her voice steady. "I'm just here to help, Mrs. Hartwell." "I'm sure you are," Eleanor replied, her smile sharp as a blade. "We'll see about that." From that moment, Eleanor became Emily's shadow, watching, questioning, probing. She'd appear suddenly, making cutting remarks about opportunists and gold diggers. Every interaction was a battle, every day a minefield. But something else was happening too. Nathan was changing, softening. He'd ask Emily to stay for lunch to share stories about her life. She carefully constructed a fictional past, but wove in truths about her real parents, her real dreams. And sometimes when he smiled at her jokes or thanked her for her help, she almost forgot she was lying. "You're different from other people." "I've known," Nathan said one afternoon, as they worked side by side. "You don't want anything from me. You don't even seem impressed by all this." He gestured around the opulent room. Emily's throat tightened. "Money doesn't define a person's worth," she said quietly. "Neither does power." Nathan studied her face, that familiar frown returning. "You remind me of someone. It's been bothering me since we met." Emily's blood ran cold. She quickly changed the subject, but the seed of suspicion had been planted. How long could she maintain this charade? And more troubling, why was it becoming harder each day to remember why she hated this man? Eleanor Hartwell had not built her family's empire by being naive. In her 68 years, she'd seen every type of schemer, gold digger, and opportunist who tried to attach themselves to the Hartwell name. And something about this Sarah Johnson set off every alarm in her finely tuned system. She made calls to old friends, hired a discreet private investigator, and watched the young woman with the intensity of a hawk studying prey. The girl was too careful, too perfect in her responses, too vague about her past. Eleanor knew a fake identity when she saw one. Meanwhile, Nathan's recovery progressed rapidly, but his interest in his mysterious savior grew even faster. Emily found herself caught in an impossible situation. The more she tried to maintain professional distance, the more Nathan seemed drawn to her. "You never talk about your family," he observed one morning as Emily organized his correspondence. "Or your previous job. Why did you leave?" Emily's hands trembled slightly as she filed papers. "That's not important. I prefer to focus on the present." Nathan wheeled closer, his eyes searching her face. "Sarah, you saved my life. Everything about you is important to me." The sincerity in his voice made her chest tighten. This wasn't the cold CEO who'd dismissed her without a thought. This man was vulnerable, grateful, and increasingly kind. It was confusing and painful, like watching two different people inhabit the same body. That evening, Eleanor made her move. She'd arranged a family dinner, just the three of them, at the Hartwell mansion. The dining room was intimidating in its grandeur, crystal chandeliers, priceless artwork, and a table that could seat 20. "So, Sarah," Eleanor began as the first course was served, "tell us about your family. Where did you grow up?" Emily had prepared for this, but under Eleanor's penetrating gaze, her carefully constructed story felt flimsy. "I grew up in South Carolina. My parents passed away a few years ago." "How terrible. And your last employment?" "Various administrative positions," Emily replied vaguely. "I'm between opportunities at the moment." Eleanor's smile was predatory. "How fortunate that you happened to be driving by during Nathan's accident, on that particular highway, at that exact moment." Nathan frowned at his mother. "Mother, please. Sarah saved my life. This interrogation is unnecessary." "Is it?" Eleanor set down her wineglass with deliberate precision. "Because I find it fascinating that our savior here seems to have no digital footprint, no social media, no employment history I can verify, no references. It's almost as if Sarah Johnson doesn't exist." Emily's blood turned to ice. She could feel the walls closing in, the elaborate lie beginning to crumble. Nathan was looking at her now with confusion and growing suspicion. "That's ridiculous," Emily managed, but her voice wavered. Eleanor reached into her purse and pulled out a folder. "My investigator is very thorough. Would you like to know what he found? Or rather, what he didn't find?" "Mother, stop this," Nathan commanded, but Eleanor was already opening the folder. No LinkedIn profile, no Facebook, no Instagram, no address history, no credit report, but you know what he did find? Eleanor's eyes glittered with triumph. A young woman matching. "Your description was seen leaving Hartwell Industries the morning of Nathan's accident. With a box, the kind employees use when they've been terminated." The room spun. Emily gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles white. Nathan's face had gone pale, his eyes darting between his mother and Emily. "Her name," Eleanor continued relentlessly, "is Emily Carter, a former marketing manager at your company, Nathan. Fired in the restructuring, 12 hours before she supposedly stumbled upon your accident." The silence was deafening. Nathan stared at Emily. No, she was Emily now, the mask finally, ripped away, with a mixture of shock and betrayal that cut deeper than any corporate termination. "Is this true?" His voice was barely a whisper. Emily stood slowly, dignity her only remaining shield. Tears blurred her vision, but she wouldn't. Let them fall, not here, not in front of them. "Yes," she said simply, "I'm Emily Carter. You fired me that morning. And yes, I saved your life that night. Not because I knew it was you, I didn't, not until the hospital. I saved you because it was the right thing to do." Nathan's face was a battlefield of emotions. Confusion, hurt, anger, and something else she couldn't identify. "You've been lying to me this whole time, like you lied to all of us." Emily's control finally snapped. "When you promised job security, when you said we were a family, when you destroyed 20% of your workforce with a 2-minute speech." Eleanor watched the exchange with satisfaction, but Nathan's expression had shifted to something unexpected. Shame. Emily grabbed her purse, her exit as dignified as she could manage. "I'll leave my final report on your desk tomorrow. Consider this my resignation." Again, as she walked through the marble foyer, her heels clicking against the floor, she heard Nathan call her name, her real name. But she didn't turn back. Some bridges, once burned, couldn't be rebuilt. Outside, the Atlanta night was warm and humid. Emily walked to her car on unsteady legs, finally allowing the tears to fall. She'd lost everything twice now, her job, her dignity, and something else she didn't want to name. Something that had been growing in the quiet moments when Nathan smiled at her, thanked her, treated her like she mattered. Behind her, in the mansion's dining room, Nathan sat in stunned silence while Eleanor poured herself another glass of wine, victory written across her face. But Nathan wasn't thinking about his mother's triumph. He was thinking about a cardboard box, a 2-minute speech, and the look in Emily's eyes, both times he'd watched her world crumble. Nathan Hartwell hadn't slept in 3 days. The revelation at dinner replayed in his mind like a broken record. Emily's face when the truth came out, the pain in her eyes that mirrored something he'd seen before, but hadn't registered. He pulled up the security footage from that morning, watching himself deliver the restructuring announcement with clinical detachment. There she was, in the 3rd row, her face crumbling as HR approached with the manila envelope. How had he not recognized her? How had he been so blind? But more troubling questions nagged at him. He'd signed off on every termination, but now, for the first time, he actually looked at the files. Emily Carter's record was exemplary. Consistently exceeded targets, landed major accounts, glowing peer reviews. Why had she been on the list? Nathan called his head of HR at 2 a.m., then his CFO, then the head of marketing. By dawn, a disturbing picture had emerged. Emily hadn't been selected by the algorithm that determined layoffs. Her name had been manually added to the list by Derek Morrison, the marketing VP, a man whose advances Emily had rejected 6 months ago, according to whispered office gossip Nathan had previously ignored. The truth hit him like a physical blow. Emily had been fired not for performance but for revenge, and he'd rubber-stamped it without question, too focused on bottom lines to see the human cost. Nathan spent the next week trying to reach Emily. Her phone was disconnected. Her apartment manager said she'd moved out. Her LinkedIn profile had been deleted. It was as if she'd vanished completely, taking his chance at redemption with her. Meanwhile, Eleanor watched her son's transformation with growing concern. The cold, efficient CEO was gone, replaced by a man who stared out windows for hours, who questioned every business decision, who seemed haunted by something she couldn't understand. "She manipulated you," Eleanor insisted over breakfast. "This was all calculated. The rescue, the false identity working her way into your life." Nathan's laugh was bitter. "Was it? Or did she just need a job after I destroyed her career? Mother, she didn't even take the money I tried to give her for saving my life. She left her final paycheck on my desk." Eleanor had no answer for that. 2 weeks later, Nathan made a decision that shocked Atlanta's business community. He appeared at Hartwell Industries, not in his usual chauffeured car, but driving himself, his first time behind the wheel since the accident. He called an all-hands meeting standing at the same podium where he'd announced the layoffs. "I've discovered that our recent restructuring included terminations that were personal, not professional," he announced. "Employees were let go based on vendettas, not performance. This happened under my watch and I take full responsibility." The room buzzed with whispers. Nathan continued, his voice steady but filled with something employees had never heard before: genuine emotion. "Effective immediately, we're reviewing every termination. Those wrongfully dismissed will be offered their positions back with full back pay and a formal apology. Starting with Emily Carter from marketing, who saved my life 3 weeks ago despite having every reason to let me die." The announcement made headlines. Business blogs speculated about the CEO's transformation. But Nathan didn't care about public perception anymore. He only cared about finding Emily. Derek Morrison was terminated for misconduct. The HR processes were overhauled, but none of it brought Emily back. A month after the dinner revelation, Nathan received an unexpected visitor. Eleanor stood. In his office, her usual imperial bearing somewhat diminished. "I hired another investigator," she said quietly. "A better one." He found her. Nathan's heart leaped. "Where?" "She's volunteering at a road safety charity, teaching first aid, counseling accident victims." Eleanor handed him a piece of paper with an address. "She's speaking at an event tomorrow night." Nathan stared at the address, hope and fear warring in his chest. "Why are you helping me?" Eleanor's mask finally cracked. "Because I haven't seen you smile, really smile, since your father died, except for those 2 weeks when she was here. I was wrong about her, Nathan. Don't let my prejudice cost you something real." The next evening, Nathan stood at the back of a community center, watching Emily address a crowd of volunteers. She spoke about the night of his accident, about the choice to help a stranger, about how small acts of kindness could ripple outward in unexpected ways. She never mentioned his name or their connection. When she finished, the audience applauded. Nathan made his way forward, his heart pounding. Emily saw him and froze, her face a mixture of emotions he couldn't read. The crowd seemed to sense something significant was happening. Conversations died as Nathan reached the front of the room. "Emily," he said, his voice carrying in the sudden silence. "I came to say something I should have said weeks ago. I'm sorry. Not just for the firing, for not seeing you, not valuing you, not recognizing the exceptional person you are." Emily's eyes glistened, but she remained silent. Nathan continued, aware of the hundreds of eyes on them, but focused only on her. "You saved my life twice, once from the crash, and once from the man I'd become. Someone who saw numbers instead of people, profits instead of dreams. I was wrong about everything." "Nathan," Emily finally spoke, her voice soft but clear, "I didn't save you for an apology. I didn't save you for a job. I saved you because that's what decent people do." "I know." Nathan stepped closer. "But I'm not here as a CEO. I'm here as a man who's learned that the most valuable things can't be measured on spreadsheets, who's learned that forgiveness is stronger than anger, and that sometimes the worst moments lead to the most important revelations." The room held its breath. Emily studied his face, seeing something there she'd glimpsed during those 2 weeks. Vulnerability, sincerity, and genuine change. "I don't want my old job back," she said finally. Nathan's face fell, but Emily continued, I want to build something new, something based on truth, not lies. On respect, not power. Can you do that? I can try, Nathan said simply, if you'll help me. Emily extended her hand, the same hand that had pulled him from a burning car, that had been cut by glass in her desperate effort to save him. Nathan took it, feeling the scars beneath his fingers. In the back of the room, Eleanor Hartwell watched with tears in her eyes, tears she would never admit to shedding. She nodded once, a silent blessing, then slipped out quietly. The audience erupted in applause, but Nathan and Emily barely heard it. They were lost in a moment of understanding, two people who'd found truth in deception, healing in hurt, and possibility in the ashes of what had been. 3 months later, Atlanta's business district buzzed with news of Hartwell Industries' latest initiative, a revolutionary employee protection program that guaranteed fair termination reviews and whistleblower protections. The press called Cite the Carter Protocol, named after the woman whose wrongful termination had sparked a corporate revolution. Emily stood in her new office, not at Hartwell Industries, but at the non-profit she'd founded with Nathan's support. Second Chances focused on helping wrongfully terminated employees fight back, providing legal resources and job placement services. The walls were decorated not with corporate awards, but with thank you letters from people whose lives had been changed. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Nathan entered, no longer the cold CEO in expensive suits, but a man who'd learned to balance profit with purpose. He carried 2 cups of coffee, nothing fancy, just the way Emily liked. The board approved the new hiring practices, he said, setting a cup on her desk. No more arbitrary terminations. Every decision now requires multiple reviews. Emily smiled, taking a sip. That's wonderful. How many people will this protect? Thousands. Nathan settled into the chair across from her. The same dynamic as those weeks in his home, but now built on truth instead of lies. But I didn't come here to talk about business. Emily raised an eyebrow. Oh, Nathan pulled out his phone, showing her a message. My mother wants to know if you're free for dinner on Sunday. She says, and I quote, "Tell Emily I'm making my famous lasagna, the one she pretended to like when she was Sarah." Emily laughed, a real laugh, free from the weight of deception. I wasn't pretending. Her lasagna is actually amazing. She knows, Nathan grinned. She also said to tell you, he paused, his expression growing serious. She said, you saved him twice, from the crash and from himself. The family owes you a debt we can never repay. The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Emily thought back to that rainy night, to the choice that had changed everything. She'd saved a stranger out of human decency, never imagining it would lead to her own salvation. Tell her I'll be there, Emily said softly. But she owes me nothing. Sometimes the best things come from the worst moments. Nathan stood to leave, then paused at the door. Emily, I know we're taking things slow, building trust, but I need you to know something. She looked up, meeting his eyes, those same steel grey eyes that had once been so cold, now warm with something that made her heart skip. That night, in the rain, you didn't just save a CEO. You saved a man who'd forgotten how to be human. And every day since, you've reminded me that success isn't measured in stock prices or profit margins, but in the lives we touch and the good we do. Emily felt tears prick her eyes, happy tears this time. Nathan Hartwell, are you getting philosophical on me? He laughed, the sound rich and genuine. Maybe, is it working? Maybe, she echoed, her smile radiant. As Nathan left, Emily turned to look out her window at the Atlanta skyline. The same city where she'd lost everything had become the place where she'd found her purpose. The Hartwell Industries building dominated the view, but it no longer represented pain. It stood for transformation, redemption, and the power of second chances. Her phone buzzed with a text from Eleanor. Don't forget Sunday, 6 p.m. sharp. And Emily, thank you for giving my son back his smile. Emily typed back, wouldn't miss it. Thank you for giving me a chance to know the real him. Outside, the afternoon sun broke through the clouds, casting golden light across the city. Emily thought about the thousands of people who would benefit from the changes at Hartwell Industries. about the families who wouldn't suffer because of arbitrary corporate decisions, about the ripple effects of one act of kindness on a rainy night. She'd lost a job but found a calling, lost a false identity but discovered her true self, and in the process, she'd learned that forgiveness wasn't about forgetting the past. It was about choosing to build a better future. The intercom buzzed. "Ms. Carter, your 3 o'clock appointment is here. It's a woman who was terminated from her law firm. She says she heard about us from the news story." "Send her in," Emily replied, straightening her desk. Another person in need, another chance. See to make a difference. Another reminder that the worst moments could indeed lead to the best beginnings. As the door opened to admit her new client, Emily smiled. She'd saved a man from a burning car, and in return he'd helped her save herself. Sometimes the universe had a strange way of balancing the scales, and sometimes, just sometimes, the person who breaks your world turns out to be the one who helps you rebuild it, stronger, truer, and more beautiful than before. If this story touched your heart, reminded you that kindness always finds its way back, and showed you that forgiveness can transform lives, please subscribe to hear more incredible stories of redemption, unexpected connections, and the power of second chances. Your support helps us share these inspiring tales with others who need to hear them.